So what would you say basically is the relevance of Marx in the 21st century?
Well, Marx, you see, was the person who spent more time than any other philosopher and thinker on analyzing the laws of motion of capital. And as long as capital exists, even though the form taken by capital, especially in the Western world, has changed, you can't avoid Marx. He was very far-sighted. He even spoke of a time that would come when dead capital, which actually produced nothing, would become very dominant. And we've seen this zombie capitalism bringing down Wall Street in 2008. And that is the reason why even many bourgeois economists talk about Marx and go back to Marx to understand how their own system works. So it's not that they have become Marxists, but they need him in order to understand their own system. And that is quite a remarkable and unique tribute to this great thinker.
Now, Marx predicted kind of a verellendigung of the working class. That, at least in Europe, has not happened because of the corrective measures that the workers' movements achieved. So was he wrong in that?
It's not so much that he was wrong, he failed to foresee. How could he, after all? He was not a magician. The recuperative powers of capital. That this is a system which is capable of recovering and doing whatever is necessary to preserve itself. And whatever is necessary is determined by the status quo, by the situation that exists. So that if in 1945 to 1969 or 1975 they need a system which makes a lot of reforms, the reason for that is that the world is very different. That is the world of the Soviet Union and the world where China, Russia, Eastern Europe is removed from the world market. When they feel the need to revive a capitalism in the present world in which all alternatives, however weak or bad, have been destroyed, then they don't need to go the social democratic way. They can become more and more dictatorial, but they keep the system going. Of course, the danger in the second method is that if you carry on going like this, there will be new upheavals, new forms of struggle will break out, and people will say, we don't want to live like this, we don't want to be governed like this. That's for the West. In China, you have a very traditional Marxist formula taking place in the birth of a huge modern proletariat, in a shift from the countryside to the cities. People working in factories like they did in Victorian England and the early years of the United States. And there's something along the lines of working class parties, struggles will emerge and are already taking place in a small embryonic.
Against the Communist Party.
Against the Chinese Communist Party, which in fact could easily change its name to the Chinese Capitalist Party, and they wouldn't have to change too much because the sea is the same, so they could preserve all the initials.
Would you say that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that the West, or let's say the United States and UK, are waging together with NATO, that they are along the lines of imperialist wars that Marx would describe?
Well, they are, but they are, in a sense, not exclusively determined by economic necessity. Though oil is always an important factor in the Middle East, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan began as wars to cement US hegemony and to preserve indefinitely the status of the United States as the global hegemon. Whether they will be able to do this is open to question. Of course, both in Iraq and Afghanistan there have been disastrous outcomes for them. In Iraq they have, by their intervention, destruction of the Ba'athist regime, they have made Iran the single most important player in the region. In Afghanistan they have not been able to create a stable, viable state. And they are now threatened by the Neo-Taliban, which is an umbrella which unites Taliban, new Taliban, ex-Taliban, new people coming into the struggle, basically fighting for Pashtun independence, in effect, since it's the largest section of the population. And I think the Pashtun national movement now takes this form of the insurgency, and they want them out of there. And so the plan of the United States to build bases permanently, I don't think is going to work.